What if Mandark actually won? Not just a science fair, not just a one-episode gag. What if Dexter actually lost? Before the MCU made variants a household term, before Spider-Verse made the multiverse cool, before Disney Channel was doing dystopian timeline movies, Cartoon Network quietly did it first, in 2000, with what was marketed as their very first original movie. And Dexter's Laboratory Ego Trip is way more ambitious than you'd expect. For anyone who needs a quick refresher, the show Dexter's Laboratory was one of the original cartoons. It followed Dexter, a child genius in a secret laboratory hidden behind a bookshelf in his bedroom. Inside the lab were giant robots, portals, time machines, all sorts of weapons, you name it. Outside that lab, just ordinary suburban life and one unstoppable force of nature, his sister Dee Dee. She wasn't evil, she wasn't malicious, she was just a chaotic little kid. And if Dexter built it, she would absolutely destroy it. Then there was Mandark, Dexter's rival, dramatic, petty, theatrical. His main life goal is to prove he's smarter than Dexter, not to conquer the planet or enslave humanity, just win the intellectual rivalry. The show was fast, gag-heavy, and broken into 5 to 7 minute segments. It wasn't really about high stakes, and it wasn't really an action epic. Even the superhero parody segments like Dial M for Monkey or The Justice Friends leaned way more into comedy than it did spectacle. So taking that formula and stretching it into a nearly hour-long continuous story was already a bold swing. The movie kicks off with Mandark sabotaging Dexter's latest invention, the neuroatomic protocore, which Dexter insists will be his greatest achievement. In classic fashion, Dexter tries to fix it. Instead, he blasts himself into the future. What he finds is honestly kind of awesome in concept. Mandark has conquered the world. I am always intrigued by villain wins timelines. There's something instantly compelling about seeing what happens if the bad guy actually succeeds. You get the same idea in the movies Kim Possible Stitch in Time and Phineas and Ferb across the second dimension. The dystopian future immediately raises the stakes, because now it's not just about stopping a scheme, it's about undoing a catastrophe. But here's where the problems lie. Mandark in the original series didn't usually want global domination, he just wanted validation. He wanted Dexter to admit defeat. So seeing him jump from being a petty rival to this world-controlling dictator feels like escalation for the sake of movie scale, rather than organic character growth. Does it break the movie? No, it just feels like a tonal upgrade the series didn't necessarily build toward. Another thing that's really noticeable, Dexter ages in the future. We see older, rugged, even elderly versions of him. Mandark looks exactly the same. Why does Dexter age normally while Mandark feels frozen in this smug theatrical villain mode? It's never explained, it's just cartoon logic. And honestly, it's kind of funny in this meta sort of way, like Mandark is so committed to his aesthetic that even time won't change him. The voice shift is also noticeable. Dexter sounds slightly higher here compared to earlier seasons. Originally voiced by Christine Cavanaugh, later seasons featured Kenny Milo, and the tonal difference shows. What's funny is that future Dexter arguably should have a deeper voice, but instead the older versions exaggerate personality traits rather than realistically aging vocally. It's stylized instead of grounded. Again, not a deal-breaker, just something I noticed. What really surprised me on a rewatch is how ahead of a time the multiverse angle feels. Multiple Dexters from different timelines teaming up in 2000? That's kinda wild. Long before the MCU leaned hard into variants, and long before the Spider-Verse films turned alternate selves into an art form, this Cartoon Network special casually played with the concept. You've got present-day Dexter, hardened action hero Dexter, and elderly wise Dexter. It's not as emotionally deep as modern multiverse storytelling, but the idea is there. And this is where you can really see Genndy Tartakovsky, I'm probably mispronouncing that name, stretching as a storyteller. Dexter's Lab wasn't primarily an action show, but this movie Ego Trip gives him room to stage larger set pieces, wider environments, more cinematic framing. You can also feel the seeds of Samurai Jack in the dystopian world design and the pacing of certain sequences, and we'll get to that Samurai Jack movie later this month. Stick with me with that. Feels like a bridge, like Tartakovsky tearing what he could do beyond short-form comedy. At the same time, I do wish the movie had gone even further. The concept of Mandark ruling the world could have been pushed into something truly bonkers, like where are the Justice Friends in this dystopia, where's the monkey from the Dial M for Monkey segments? A crossover cameo of the ruined future would have been incredible. The movie keeps its focus tight, Dexter versus Mandark, which makes for cleanest storytelling, but it does feel like a missed opportunity to celebrate the larger universe of the show. There's also the prototype Jimmy Neutron vibe. The boy genius with secret lab concept obviously wasn't invented here, no pun intended, but Dexter absolutely helped define the archetype for late 90s kids animation. Then a year later we get Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, which leans more into 3D spectacle, but carries similar DNA. You can definitely trace the lineage. Let's talk about the ending, though. Dee Dee swooping in to save the day at the last second is the most Dexter's Laboratory resolution imaginable. It fits the show's chaotic reset button energy perfectly. Of course, the one person who constantly destroys the lab would also accidentally fix the timeline, but at the same time it does feel a little Deus Ex Machina. After building up a dystopian future and a world-conquering Mandark, the resolution wraps up quickly. I can't help but wish the movie had gone about 10, maybe 15 minutes longer and really escalated before hitting the reset button. And that brings me to the runtime question. Could this have worked theatrically? Honestly, no. I think keeping it as a TV special was the right move. The structure still feels rooted in episodic storytelling. Stretching into a full theatrical 80, 90, 100 minutes might have exposed some of the thinness in character arcs. As a 45-minute event on Cartoon Network, it feels just right. What makes Ego Trip stand out isn't the perfection, it's ambition. It takes a fast-paced gag series and attempts long form of storytelling. It experiments with alternate timelines before that was mainstream. It lets its creator flex action muscles that later defined an entire era of animation. It's not flawless, Mandark's motivation stretches a bit, the ending wraps a little conveniently, and it could have gone bigger, but it's historically important and creatively bold. Watching it now, it feels like a time capsule of Cartoon Network at the turn of the millennium. The art style, the confidence, the willingness to try something new. It's easy to forget how experimental that era of animation really was. So where do I land on it? For me, it's a solid B, 8 out of 10, or 3.5 out of 5 stars. Ambitious, creative, slightly uneven, but absolutely worth revisiting, especially if you grew up in the cartoon era. And honestly, for a movie about ego, it kind of earns it.